Well, you you hooked up with some other black policemen, and you called yourselves the Three Bs. Tell me about those guys.
3B. You read my book, Binding Us Together. The 3Bs. I was the first one. Well, when I came on, there were just a few black officers. One of the few black officers that came on, and there was quite a distance between my 44th cadet class and the other, and the 43rd. So I came on June 1. In September, a young man came on who just got out of the service, William Bumpus, from Clinton, Tennessee, but had an aunt here. And when he got out of the service, he lived with her, and he joined the police department. And he was in cadet school. And I hadn't completed my probationary period. It was a year probation. And the sergeant of the academy, Sergeant Jim Kennedy, his son was a captain, Bill Kennedy, but Jim was the father of the police academy. He asked me one day. He said, "Listen, there's a young black officer named Bumpus would like to." At that time, once you get your assign, you go to the shooting range and qualify. You then had a gun and a badge. You could carry your gun in your badge. And he said, "There's a young black officer would like to ride out with you," because I was in my class of 29. I was only black officers, and that was something to discuss also. But
what year was that?
1954, June 1 when I hit the class, and we're talking about September now. When the other class our class ended the 21st of September 54, and the new class started the 1st of October, as I recall, 54. And so now we're talking about the latter part of the year of 1954. And William Bumpus was in the 45th class. And so I said, "Yeah, it's okay, you can ride out with me." But I hadn't completed my probationary period. But he was the only one that he saw it in his age group, and he asked me, and I said, "Yeah, well, I hadn't been off probation." And the kind of things that we went through as he's in the academy and in cadet school and me in the academy. Then a young man that I'd gone to school with, he and his wife, my late wife, and I had gone to school with him and his wife, Boyd, Jane Boyd. And he worked for Manor Bread, drove a truck for Manor Bread Company. And he came by my house one day and he said, "Look," he said, "you're on the police department. I've been thinking about this. We're talking about, I've been on a year now." He said, "I've been thinking about going to the police department." I said, "Great, you ought to join us." I said, because Bumpus Bumpus and I were the same age. And I think Bumpus was born in 1933. I was born in 1932, and Boyd was born in 1933. And so in 1956, Boyd came on. And I said, "Come on and join us." And so after we got on, we then began to see what was happening to the black community. It was near the end of the Mafia and Tom Pendergast days, but both still had a stronghold on the black community. And the fencing, the gambling, the prostitution, and the drugs, the policies, policy wheel and all that, was controlled by outside whites, either part of the Mafia or part of the Pendergast. And although there were black men who owned gambling houses but no prostitution, but gambling houses, no drugs, but mainly was gambling. But whites owned both the gambling and the others. And so when we got together, we finished out. I think William might have still been on his probation. And we got together and we said, we don't like what's going on. We're going to do something about it. Here we are, 22 years old now, each of us, going on 23, and maybe even 23. And so we said, this is what we're going to do. So we got together. The first thing we done was a gambling house, which was one of the largest gambling houses, it was run by a black man, but it was a house man, but of course the payoff was to somebody white and some police officers.
Where was it located?
1800 block of Vine, right above Monarch Bowl, which is black on all those businesses. Keep in mind that during this period of time, the cultural mecca for African Americans were in that area from about Independence Avenue to 27th Street from about Charlotte over to Brooklyn. That was the culture mecca where all the businesses and then the two high schools, Lincoln as well as R.T. Cole's, and now there were 3 theaters not owned by blacks but that catered to the black patrons. But we couldn't go to the white theaters. We couldn't go to the white diners and eating places. And until 1964.
Were there any jazz clubs at that
Oh
time?
yes, all the jazz clubs were there. We had from Charlie Parker, who was around there, and Count Basie and Benny Moten and Mary Lou Williams. All those great singers of that period, that era, came within the confines. Either the Blue Room, which was under the Streets Hotel, owned by Mr. Streets, who was a black man. Now the Rose Room, the Orchid Room up at 12th and Vine, was owned by a white person, but you could go there. But he also owned a place someplace else. You couldn't go there, but you could go to one in the black community. Now Felix Payne was a gambler, big time guy, no penny ante gambler, and apparently from all indications, he was in real estate and that kind of thing. All indications, nobody bothered him. I don't know whether any history is made of the great Felix Payne, but a brilliant man, but it was a gambler. But big gambler. I'm not talking about penny ante gamblers, crap games, real gambling. But this was one of the big gambling houses. Was run by a black man, but was controlled by whites. So we decided to go there. Boyd was one who made the decision. He said, "What we ought to do?" It was police circus time, and every year they had police circus. They came in to do a benefit for the Police Benefit Association, and all police officers were asked and held accountable for selling so many tickets. I think the same as like 100 tickets. They were $1 a piece and 10 books of 10. And so we said we ought to go up here and sell some circus tickets. So Bumpus was off. Bumpus relieved Boyd. Boyd and I were the same ship, rotating ship. And Bumpus, we came in early and we just made this decision to do this. So we go up there, and Boyd, I think, had the nightstick. He knocked on the door. Boom, boom, and this fellow came in and slid just gave him "What you all want?" And Boy said, "Open the door." He said, "Man, I can't open the door for y'all." He looked around. He said, "Ain't that Brooks?" And he didn't know Bumpus, but Bumpus wasn't local. He didn't grow up here. He said, so Boy said, "Open the door." "Open the door right now." He said, "Man, I can't open the door." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to and get this shotgun. I'll blow that damn lock off that door. We'll get." So Bump said, "No, you don't need to do that. I got this .357 Magnum. I'll shoot the lock off and hit somebody inside, go down 18th and find hit somebody." Okay. So he called the houseman. "Man, but I can't, y'all trying to make a name for yourself. I can't let y'all in there." He said, "Open the door, man." And he said, "Open it now." So he opened the door and we went in there, and there were about 24 men and one woman. They had this big pool table where the money was all around. So each one of us had our guns down to our side and drawn down to our side. Everybody get against the wall. So the houseman said, "Y'all aren't getting ready to rob us," but everybody looking at y'all trying to get ready to rob us. "What the hell is wrong with you, young niggas? We are going ready to rob us." And Bush said, "Man, shut up and stick at the wall." And so he said, "How many of you in here got children?" Everybody looked at each other kind of strange, "How many of you got children?" And know some children. He said, "Well, we're here to sell you some circus tickets." So I pulled out, oh God, I pulled out my 100. Boy pulled out his 100 over there. He said, "Now, what time is it now?" He looked and said, "This same time tomorrow, we're coming back. We want $300. $100 for me, $100 for Brooks, $100 for Bumpus. So can you do that?" And I think either I said or Bumpus said, I forget which one in the book. I said, "We don't want no food stamps either. We know strictly money." So the next day we come back, and there the doorman, who was the houseman, not the doorman, but the houseman, came back and through the slit, put 3 piles of $100 in one. Maybe somebody broke it. Anyway, $100. Then he had another extra $75. And Boy, I said, "No, don't take that. Let's go back and get 75 more tickets." So Boy said, "Okay, I'm going to get some more tickets." Well, by that time, Boy and I were off. So we came back with Bumpus and got 75 more tickets. I said, because we had taken that, they said then they would pay us all. So they don't know whether we had, so we got 75 more tickets. And we did that numerous times. there are a number of restaurants, kind of hole in the wall, greasy spoons, that did bootlegging on Sundays and after hours, and they're paying people off. That's when Bob Hyman, the infamous Bob Hyman, who people can look up, Bob Hyman was an equal opportunity cop. He didn't like anybody, but he didn't like Italians and he didn't like blacks. And in his book, I think The Man Behind the Badge or something like that, Robert Hyman, he talked about it. He has photos and he tell you what he did. And he was reduced in rank and suspended and all those kind of things doing it, but he ended up retiring as a captain. Well, we didn't interfere with him and he didn't interfere with us, but he knew we were out there. And we beat him to a lot of places, but we treated people. The one thing a couple things we never did. We never broke the law, and we never mistreated anybody. Now we did a lot of things that were unethical, as it relates to police work, but it wasn't anything to get you fired, and no one ever called us for anything that we did. And I think it's because we started the vanguard, became the young vanguard of the black community. And we were restricted to only 2 districts that we could ride, and that was from Truce to Paseo 12th to 23rd, Paseo to Brooklyn 12th to 23rd, 123 and 124. That was the call numbers for the district. And we couldn't ride patrol out of that area, but we could make calls. And just a few years before I came on in the 40s, if you're a black officer, you couldn't arrest a white person. Now you could detain them, but you couldn't arrest him. It's the late Lloyd DeGraff Reed Sr. When he was interviewed by the board, at that time you were interviewed by the Board of Police Commission. And Lloyd was there, and after they interviewed Lloyd and everything, they said, "Lloyd, anything you want to ask?" And he said, "Yeah, I don't know, can I arrest anybody?" Lloyd had a master's degree, had been a principal in North Carolina, and an educated man. And he said, they look kind of strange at each other, and then he said, "Well, excuse us." So he goes out, and pretty soon they brought him back. And yes, you can arrest him. So when I came in 1954, we could arrest anybody, but we still could not patrol outside. Now, white officers could patrol our district, but we couldn't control their district. 2 white officers, and they could put a black and white officer together in our district, but not in the other district. So everything we did was in those bumpers and Buenos. That's why they began to call us the 3 Bs. But we were, and some of the, I never shall forget, 2 or 3 of the black officers. One was DeGraff and Reed and Omar Brown. They had both made detectives by the time I came out. There were 3 of us came out of the academy, and we met at 17 Terra Paseo, which is now Kleist Center, and they said, "Listen, you need to be. What you all did up above the Monarch was a brilliant move. It was television kind of stuff." He said, "But be careful. The word is out. Both inside the police department, be careful, as well as outside." And so we decided, well, we weren't going to stop. So we went to talk to Miss Bluford at the Kansas City, called the black newspaper. We talked to Mr. Tom Webster, who was with the Urban League, Mr. Carl R. Johnson, who was with the NAACP and became the first black city judge. And those are the 3 strong groups, the paper and that. And they said, "You got to be careful." And so I think that the word got around that we talked to that black league. We talked to some ministers like Dr. D.A. Holmes, Paseo Baptist Church, Dr. John W. Williams at St. Stephen. These were prominent ministers, large congregations of black people. And we did it until they transferred, they broke us up. And we got in 1958, we've been doing this. And we put people in jail for doing stuff. One of the other things that happened, white also would stop. Prostitution was very strong around 12th and Truce and around. And white and the clients were white men, not only from Johnson County but Kansas City. And the white also would stop them, put the black prostitute in jail, and let the white person go. Well, we found that out, and so what we started when we'd get the couple together, we'd stop it. We'd get her name. She didn't have any warrants, okay, And then what we do on the air, we only had one frequency. And so we'd call in this person's name. John Smith, such address, Olin Park, Kansas, such address, Wyandotte, Kansas, something like that. Well, it went out over the air, white male, so-and-so. And we broke that stuff up quick. The police department stopped doing that. They stopped. Now, the vice squad was different. But district officers like we were, they'd catch a black woman, and even sometime a black woman and a white man weren't prostitutes. They were there. Sometimes a husband and wife were just dating, and they'd still put the woman in jail. So we went in I think it was September of 1958. All of us got notices. 6 of us got notice. 6 black officers got notice. And Bumpus Boy and myself were part of this. Oh, well, Bernard C. Brandon was now Bernard C. Brandon was still the chief. He ended up getting indicted in 1961 with some other folks. But anyway, he calls 6 of us in. I want to try something. I want 3 of you to ride in the ethnic community where there are Italian, Croatians, Belgians are over there, and William Hayes and can't think of the other officer's name right now. We got that assignment over Northeast. Then Bumps and Boy and I forget who the other third. I think it was Saunders got around Central High School, which was beginning to working class white, but no blacks. A few blacks living in there after this was, remember now, 4 years after Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. So it began to change. White flight, although working class folk were beginning to move out, and. But we thought when we got the notice it was just the 3 of us. He said, "Uh-oh, we're getting broken up now because of what we've been doing." But it never came up. But he used us as guinea pigs, if you will, to see how we would work in those 2 ethnic communities. And of course, where we worked is District 301 out of the Sheffield Station in Independence Avenue in Bennington, right next to the fire station and the funeral home. And between the fire station and the funeral home, every time I drive by there, I think about it. But
was anybody patrolling over on the west side,
no.
where the Mexican community was?
No, nobody black. No. And it's interesting that you mentioned the west side. Right after the riot began 9th of April 1968, I went with the school district. And I worked in the Department of Urban Education, and Dr. Robert R. Wheeler was Assistant Superintendent of Urban Education. Dr. A. Lee Campbell was the director, and I was right under Dr. Campbell. And I cannot think of the person's name who was the principal of the West High School, but only went to the 10th grade. And I remember being in a meeting, and they were talking about why the Mexican kids dropped out. And I guess from my time that I told my mother that I had paid the light bill and then tore off this big part, my 400 IQ stayed with me until I was, now we're talking about 1968, 69. And I was in this meeting, I said, you don't know why Mexican kids are dropping out? Because at 16, you can drop out. Sophomores almost at 16. And so, but see, it's also, the Mexican kids could go to Manual and Northeast because they were listed as other on the cumulative card. So they could go to the white school where blacks could not. But I said, because 16, you can drop out of school. And I said, no high schools over there. It only went to the sophomore year. And somebody caught on there. Eventually, they cut that out. Right now, they went to elementary school, and then either the Manual or to Northeast at 8th grade. And it was, you see how brilliant I was at that particular time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But so in the Mexican American community on the Northeast and the West Side, it was about 50% Mexican American, first and second generation, who came in with the railroad and the stockyards and settled over there, but had some same problems with white police officers, that not as much, but because they weren't talking about like undocumented workers during that time, because they knew that people that come in both legal, most of them illegally at that particular time, to work on the railroads and this kind of thing. But they suffered some of the same abuses. Later on, when the whole immigration became an issue.
Now, when did you retire from the police department?
I didn't retire. After 10 years, Clarence Kelly became police chief in 1961. And Bernard C. Brannan, who was the chief, was indicted along with some other folks. And what they were doing, they were falsifying reports. They had a contract with the Uniform Crime Report with the federal government, to do statistics on crime. But what they were doing, and Brannan knew this, or if he didn't, he got fired and indicted because apparently he knew something. Either lied before the grand jury or something. And that's what happened, because the Board of Police Commissioners were with him until they found out he was lying. Then they put him down like a hot potato. But I was at University of Wisconsin taking some special training with the police department, and my wife had called me in my room that night and said that your chief just got indicted. Then they brought Clarence Kelly in. He's retired from FBI, New Orleans office, agent in charge. And they had the interim chief there with the superintendent of the State Highway Patrol. But I think it was June or July that Kelly came in. And as soon as he came in, when I came back and I assumed my responsibility, I was a detective at the time. And I asked to meet with him because I had been looked over twice for sergeant, been in the top group and skipped me all the time. And there were 2 or 3 other blacks in there, but I was ahead of them. And I met with him. He said, I'm going to make 25. I said, I want you, I went to the command. They sent him all my paperwork in terms of all the commendations I received and my test scores and all that. And he said, well, it looks good. He said, I'm going to make 25 over the next 2 years before that the next exam expires. You take it, if you're in the top 25, you'll make sergeant. And I was number 11. They went down and picked up number 26 and bypassed me again. And I thought that was enough. So Halloween, 31st of October 1964, I asked for an exit interview. And his son was there. He was ready to go home, but he wanted to talk with me. And he said to his son, he said, why don't you step out on it? I said, no, I want your son to stay because he don't want to hear what I've got to say because this affects him in the future. And I told him how wrong he'd been, how racist it was, how racist the department was, how I'd been looked over now for 3 times what you promised me and you didn't have. Well, but Al, you're so important. I said, but White House is important. But there I said, a loaf of bread costs me as a detective the same as does a sergeant and a lieutenant. I said, all those. I said, but they're making more money, getting promotion. I said, so I got to go. Clarence Kelly was a commencement speaker down at Warrensburg, Central Missouri State. He was in Central Missouri State University. And he was a commencement speaker. About 13,000 people out there at Kennedy Stadium, Warrensburg. And he digressed from his speech and said, I want to apologize to one of your regents, Mr. Alvin Brooks. He said, it took me to go to the FBI, as director of FBI, to understand what Mr. Brooks was saying to me before he left the department. I want to apologize.
Now, he was from the Northeast side originally, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Northeast High School.
Northeast High School, yes.
Yeah.